Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Spin Cycle, the show for short reviews of albums new and old. And today I'm going to be giving a little bit more in-depth in the album because I'm talking about Metallica's new album, Hardwired To Self-Destruct, which was released on November 18th, 2016. And because Metallica has been one of my favorite bands of all time, I think I need to give this one a little bit more scrutiny than I give most. The San Francisco-based metal band is back after extensive world touring. Metallica rose to prominence in the early 1980s with their thrashy punk metal sound. Kill 'Em All debuted in July of 1983 to begin their long and tumultuous career. After a string of thrash successes, they saw a significant sound shift with the Black Album in the early 90s, which also skyrocketed them commercially. The band has been controversial for a long time, from when they kicked out Dave Mustaine in 1983. They tragically lost bass player Cliff Burton in a bus accident in 1986, and then added Jason Newsted, who unceremoniously left in 2001. Rob Trujillo of Ozzy and Suicidal Tendencies fame was then added following Saint Anger in 2003. Arguably, that has to be the most divisive Metallica album. From the drums, to no solos, to the lyrics, everything about it was controversial. But Metallica is a household name in metal and one of the more challenging bands, but I've always loved them, and so they have a very special place in my heart. Hardwired to Self-Destruct is their 10th studio album following 2008's Death Magnetic. It's a double album, there's 6 songs on each album, with a 3-disc deluxe edition that has some previous single tracks and live recordings on it. The album was co-produced by Ulrich and Hetfield, and it's the first release from their Blackened label. Rick Rubin replaced longtime producer Bob Rock on Death Magnetic, and now Greg Feidelman co-produced them as well as mixed and recorded this record, so it's a different crew than we've seen before. The style is right in line with Death Magnetic, though the production is much more cohesive, and while it isn't quite up to the same standards as, say, And Justice for All, it does have a heart of thrash. It really feels like a tale of two albums, though. There's definitely some starker contrast between the songs than we saw on Death Magnetic. It does maintain the classic Metallica sound, but it doesn't seem like there's much growth either. It's unfortunate that Kirk lost his phone, which had so many guitar solo ideas on it, because the solos on this album are pretty much expected from Kirk Hammett. Lars sounds a lot better than he has on the previous 2 albums, although his drumming is still fairly simplistic. And James has really abandoned the vocal range of albums like Load in favor of just straight yelling. And since this is such a mixed bag, it doesn't flow as a complete album. It's really a song-by-song analysis, so let's go song by song. The first disc is energetic to say the least. There's a lot of thrash elements with later Metallica heaviness built into it. We open with the title track, which is certainly a thrash song, though the lyrics really aren't that impressive. Atlas Rise picks it up with a little bit more dynamic, classic Metallica sounding song. Now That We're Dead is a perfect follow-up to Atlas Rise in terms of the dynamic sound of the song. Moth into Flame has that Metallica flair with a unique sound that we don't hear from them very often, and it actually turns out to be one of the best songs on the album. Dream No More is a really grinding track with a fun lyrical callback to Ride the Lightning. And then Halo on Fire is a toned down, darker song, but arguably the best song on the album musically. The second disc is a little more diverse and doesn't pack the same punch as the first half. Confusion opens up the second disc with a song that sounds great, but is lyrically kind of subpar. Mankind, which is a weird title, is also one of the strangest all-around songs on the album. Half of it just feels off, but then the other half has flashes of absolute brilliance. Here Comes Revenge is a classic heavy metal song feel to it, and it's also kind of a jam song. Am I Savage is another bizarre track, though it does have a really good solo in it. And then Murder One is another grinding song, but it's also arguably the weakest song on the entire album. And then to close out the album, they decided to go with something fast, furious, and thrashy, which is why they did Spit Out the Bone, which I would say ends the album on a really high note. Of all the songs on the album, my favorite probably has to go to Halo on Fire, because it starts simply enough before becoming something truly remarkable. Overall, the lyrics really hurt my first impression of this album, but on a second listen, the lyrics didn't take away from the music as much. Once I started listening to the music more closely, I could hear those old themes that made me fall in love with Metallica in the first place. Overall, though, it's still a mixed bag, but at the end of the day, it's a Metallica album, and the positives will outlast the negatives, hopefully. But when it shines, it really does shine. When it's really good on this album, it is really good. My top 5 for the week in the spirit of Metallica, it's the 20-year anniversary of the album Load, so I'm going the top 5 songs from Load, and these are in order from 5 to 1. So number 5, Ain't My Bitch. Great way to open the album. Number 4, Until It Sleeps. That one is just dark, great, beautiful song. 3 is King Nothing. That was the first song I heard off that album, and it's one that will always stick with me. 2, The Outlaw Torn. If you're going to end an album, this is another great way to end an album with something that is just epic and majestic. Number 1, favorite song on load would be Bleeding Me. That one just gets me every time. It's such a beautiful song and such a powerful song, and certainly indicative of what Metallica can do. Let me know what you thought of Metallica's new album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, if you liked it or didn't like it. I know it's going to be controversial because it's Metallica, so please let me know either way. And that does it for this episode of Spin Cycle, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hey gang, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see, you can click to subscribe to check out my other videos right here on YouTube. Or you can click the link to check out my website to find out about all of my other projects, including my podcasts, as well as my books. So what do you say? Click away.